Hello, I'm Fiona Valpy, and I'm here today to introduce myself to new readers in Sweden because I'm so excited that my book, The Dressmaker's Gift, has been translated by Bonnier and will be made available to a whole new range of readers in Sweden. Just a little bit about myself first. I've been writing books for about 7 years and have had 7 published in the English language. They've done really well around the world. They've held the #1 positions on the Kindle charts in America, Great Britain, and in Australia. And they've been translated into 24 languages, one of which now will be Swedish, which I'm delighted about. I lived in France myself for some 7 years, and it was really in France where I found both the inspiration and the time to begin writing. So a lot of my books have been set against that French backdrop. While I was living in France, I got to know quite a lot more about what happened in that country during World War II. And of course, being occupied, that it was a country that suffered greatly, being overrun by Nazi Germany, and also extraordinarily being divided into 2. So literally overnight, the Germans drew a line, and there was occupied and unoccupied France. Of course, unoccupied France being run by a German-controlled Vichy government. So it was a relative term. But the city of Paris fell very much into the occupied area of the country. And it was quite an extraordinary city in those days. The Germans decided to leave Paris pretty much untouched. They didn't bomb it when they invaded, and indeed the French government came to an agreement with Nazi Germany in order to save Paris and try to minimize the numbers of civilians that would be killed or wounded if Paris put up a struggle and was attacked. So Paris was preserved, and the Germans very much viewed it as a sort of playground. So to be posted to Paris was a treat. Many German soldiers, members of the German military, spent time in Paris, where they could go to the beautiful restaurants, drink the lovely wine, and also, extraordinarily, make the most of the couture industry there. Of course, everyone knows of Paris's reputation in the world of fashion, and it was very much the same back in the 1940s. So there was this extraordinary juxtaposition of the couture industry carrying on, still creating these beautifully elegant dresses and outfits and suits. But at the same time, the French who were employed in that industry were undergoing terrible hardships. So that the seamstresses, for example, who were sewing these amazing couture creations, were themselves starving as they sewed. That idea very much captured my imagination when I was thinking about writing The Dressmaker's Gift. And it tells the story of 3 of those seamstresses working in a couture atelier in Paris, seeing what's going on in their city, seeing it being invaded by the Germans, and knowing the terrible atrocities that were going on in France at the time, with deportations to the concentration camps, with people being very much subjected to some terror, to torture by the Gestapo. And so these 3 young seamstresses decide that they can't just sit by and watch this happening to their city. So each in their own way, they decide to fight back, and they become involved in the resistance movement in Paris. This is all discovered in a far more modern day Strand by the granddaughter of one of these seamstresses, who comes back to Paris and is employed as a modern day fashion intern in the very building where her grandmother sewed these couture creations during the war. And she slowly begins to piece together her grandmother's story, the story of her grandmother and the story of the two friends that her grandmother had within that couture atelier. And so that's where the book opens, is with this young girl in the modern day arriving in Paris, and sort of at a crossroads in her own life, trying to discover more about her family that is an unknown to her. So I thought, if I may, I will read you a short extract just from the opening of The Dressmaker's Gift. I'll read it in English, but I'm hoping it will all be beautifully translated for you. So this takes place in 2017. From a distance, the midnight blue dress looks as though it has been cut from one single piece of silk. Its graceful lines drape and flow, skimming the form of the mannequin on which it is displayed. But if you look more closely, you will see that this is an illusion. The dress has been pieced together from scraps and offcuts, sewn edge to edge so cleverly that they have been transformed into something else. The years that have passed have aged the gown, making it so fragile that it must be protected if it is to tell its story in the years that are to come. And so the museum staff have placed it in a glass cabinet for the exhibition. On one side, the display case is made of magnifying glass to enable the viewer to study the detail of the seamstress's handiwork. Each fragment of material has been hand-sewn with invisible stitches, as tiny and regular as any modern-day machine could manage. The people who come to see it will marvel at its complexity and at the time and patience it must have taken to create it. There is a history displayed in this glass case. It's a part of all our shared histories, and it's a part of my own personal history. The museum director comes in to check that all is in order for the opening. He nods his approval, and the rest of the team head off for drinks at the bar round the corner to celebrate. But I hang back, and just before I finally close the cabinet, I run my fingertips over the delicate silver beads that draw the eye to the neckline of the dress. They're another clever distraction from the patchwork pieces, a scattering of stars against a midnight sky. I can imagine how they would have caught the light, and how the eye of the beholder would then have been drawn upwards to the sweep of the neck, the line of the cheekbones, the eyes of the wearer of this gown, eyes which would have held that same light in their depths. I shut the display cabinet, and I know that everything is ready. Tomorrow the gallery doors will open, and people will come here to look at the dress whose image is displayed on the posters on the walls of the metro. And from a distance, they will think it's been cut from one single piece of silk. It's only when they look more closely that they will see the truth. So I hope that short extract may have inspired you to pick up a copy for yourself and to read the rest of the book, to learn the story of these three young dressmakers living in Paris during extraordinary times in the years of World War II. It's great to have connected with my Swedish readers, and I hope if you enjoy the book that you might get in touch either through the publisher or through my website. But happy reading, and take care of yourselves in this difficult and strange time that we're all going through. All the best.